When you open your camera roll, every clip, every photo, it's proof that a moment happened. These memories feel safe and accessible, uploaded and locked away in the cloud, just a tap away. But not long ago, before smartphones, before digital cameras, before instant backups, memories and moments were captured on fragile film and tape, recorded on material that fades, cracks, and degrades. And over time, these memories will become completely unrecoverable. And if no one were to preserve it, entire chapters of our captured history would be lost forever.
I mean, it's very important to know where you come from, because if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going.
It's like ancient technology nowadays, you know?
That's so funny.
These are really old films from the 1930s. You can literally just rip the films because they're so brittle.
You know, well, he's not using this. Definitely some stories to be told, I know that, yeah.
I'm Elizabeth Hansen, and I'm the Managing Director for the Texas Archive of the Moving Image. Our big focus is on the actual analog media and getting that into digital form. Those things that are falling through the cracks, or that people don't have the funds to digitize, or ending up in dumpsters. We're a film archive, but you can watch over 7,000 films and videos online.
Back before we could pull a phone from our pocket and record pretty much anything we want. Of course, there were digital cameras, which I am using to record this right now. More than likely, there's a backup of this footage somewhere, like the cloud. But this digital convenience came at a cost. The cost of forgetting just how fragile the past really is. The moving image, film, or what we usually know today as video, has the ability to shape our collective human memory. But without care, those memories begin to vanish, slowly, until time erases them completely.
So we're kind of fighting against the elements of time and nature.
I made a trip to Austin, Texas to visit an organization you may have never heard of, but you should definitely know about.
How many other organizations around the country are doing what y'all are doing?
I don't know that there's any organization that is doing this exactly like we are.
This is a news film camera. It's the finest news film camera available today.
Through most of the 20th century, almost everything was captured on film or tape. And this stuff just doesn't last. Tapes disintegrate. Film warps.
We do things a little bit different than maybe a traditional archive would, because we have to digitize to keep up with the amount of donations that we get a year. So we are trying to turn things around, at least within a year.
The Texas Archive of the Moving Image is quietly doing some of the most important cultural work in our entire country. They're rescuing forgotten films, home movies, commercials, newsreels, over 12 decades of analog media before it's lost forever.
From home movies to educational films to local television. So what we're focusing on are those things that are falling through the cracks, or that people don't have the funds to digitize, or ending up in dumpsters, right? And we're finding really interesting things and discovering those often alongside the people that hold the content. So we have had over 3,000 contributors to the archive since we started, which I think is really great, and they've brought us footage from all across the state. Films can last up to 100 years if kept in good condition, but let me tell you, Houston, Galveston, not good conditions, right? Things get mold, the heat can make those chemicals break down. So often we'll see things that are in not such great condition. And then videotape, estimating 40 years for videotape, and a lot of people have videotapes at home that are much older than 40 years. So there's really a push right now to digitize those before we can access them.
Like actually preserving these things digitally. There's so many things that don't get processed and don't get preserved and are lost to time because we haven't put our hands on them and taken care of them. So I feel like that's something I've learned a lot from working here. Having a balance of doing things archivally and putting the care into taking care of these items while also keeping in consideration there is a race against time and these things do deteriorate.
But the state borders of Texas are definitely not the limits to what has been captured on film and preserved.
100 years, 125 years of filmmaking at this point. But it's crazy to think about, that really wasn't that long ago.
No, it was not.
It was not that long ago that people were, oh my goodness, this is a novelty. We can take moving images of things.
Now, stick with me here. We're not going to talk about the entire history of cinema, but we are going to cover the first few decades to get an idea of how this media took the world by storm. Back in 1878, a photographer named Edward Muybridge was hired to photograph a horse. The goal? To find out if all of the horse's hooves actually left the ground while it was at a full gallop. Now, to find out, Muybridge lined up a series of cameras along the racetrack. As the horse began running, each camera was triggered as the horse would pass, snapping a photo mid-stride. What Muybridge ended up with was a sequence of still images, showing a horse in motion. Muybridge figured out that if you played those images back in rapid succession, you created the illusion of a running horse. Back in 1878, this was revolutionary, and just like that, the world had its first moving image. This little experiment, intended for science, accidentally kicked off an artistic and technical revolution. Soon, inventors like Thomas Edison in the US and the Lumiere brothers in France saw the potential, and they began to pursue commercial opportunities selling these films. The 1890s was the birth of motion picture. Thomas Edison and other inventors developed some of the earliest motion picture cameras and projectors. These machines used strips of celluloid film fed through hand-cranked devices to capture movement one frame at a time. The early 1900s was the silent film era. Short films became a global fascination. Theaters popped up everywhere, but pretty much everything was silent. No synced sound, just music or narration. The 1920s was the sound revolution, syncing up the sound with the film. And these talkies were a major hit in theaters across the globe. But almost everything up to this point was pretty much for commercial use. So everything filmed was intentional, edited, and meant for a paying audience. Around the 1930s, two major advances happened in the world of film. One of those being the ability to capture moments in color. This Technicolor process brought vibrant life to the screen. Although still in 2D and grainy, adding color added another element that made everything a little more real. Now, the other major advancement was the relative affordability of home movie cameras. From the 1930s through the 1960s, as film equipment got smaller and more affordable, families began recording their own lives. 8mm and 16mm cameras became household tools, and at this point you had to load the film and shoot very carefully. Unlike today, you couldn't just delete what you don't like on the memory card. What you shot is what you got. And then you had to send it off to be developed. And back then, the only way to view your home movies, when you received it back from being developed, was to watch it on a small but hefty and pretty complicated home projector.
A lot of the time when we're digitizing people's home movie, these are things that they maybe only saw once, and they remember seeing when they were a kid when one of their parents or grandparents brought out the projector, and this is probably going to be the second time that they ever see this in their lives. Is when they get these digitized files back. Yeah.
Okay, I have to show you something. Let's go over here. So this was a gift I received a few months ago. It was found in an attic. Definitely not the best place to keep something like this in a humid and hot climate. Projectors like these were really the only way you could view your film, your home movies, after you shot them and had them processed. They would mail you back your film. You would run your film around these reels. You would make sure your bulb is ready to go and turn it on. Oh, there's nothing like an old analog switch. Nothing switches like that anymore. So home movies and footage shot on film like this is 8mm. These are probably the most important to the Texas Archive and the Moving Image, as there are hundreds of thousands of home movies shot on this format that have not been digitized and are at risk of being lost forever.
These are really old films from the 1930s. Films that are kept in metal canisters like this, they don't have any room to breathe. So the vinegar syndrome is literally chemicals off-gassing in the film, and because that air is trapped and those gases are trapped, it deteriorates the film. It starts to look like this, like a hockey puck. You can see it's all fused together, it's completely warped. And again, these are training films, so I'm not doing anything that I wouldn't do in a classroom environment to teach, but you can literally just rip the films because they're so brittle and they're so warped. And in severe cases, if I were to touch this film, it would literally just fall apart in my hand, or we've crumbled it enough, but you can see it literally just cracks if you touch it.
Yeah.
And so that's the type of thing that we're trying to work against. These are really old films. We digitized what we could from this collection. And so in some instances, if there are people that can afford to do physical remediation, we'll suggest outside vendors to them where they can take the films. But, you know, remediating a film like this, which would consist of like a chemical bath, rehydrating the film, digitizing it, could cost about $4,000 for just 400 feet of 16mm film from the 30s. So we've seen instances in which somebody got their films digitized by us in like 2012, brought them back a year ago to get redigitized on our new scanner, and a couple of the films were no longer in commission. In, you know, less than 15 years, some of those were just completely spent and looked like this, and they were totally viable, you know, a decade ago. So it's really unpredictable, and that's why it's really a race against time, because year to year, month to month, it really makes a difference. You know, that's one more month or one more year that something is exposed to, you know, vinegar syndrome, off-gassing, humidity. So yeah, it's very, very time-sensitive work. Yeah.
It really is unbelievable. It really is. So these are from the 30s.
A lot of the time that's the case where this is just like stuff that's been forgotten about in people's attics, or it was junk that they were gonna toss.
So now that you've seen just how fragile these materials are, some literally crumbling away in our hands, we start to understand what's at stake. It's not just old film. It's family stories, local news, training reels, forgotten moments that were never meant to disappear. And unless someone steps in to preserve, digitize, and in some cases repair this analog media, those little captured snippets of history could be gone forever. But saving these memories for future generations isn't just about technology. It's about patience, skill, and a whole lot of time.
I'm working on digitizing, and this is the first of 5, so you can kind of see like the sheer amount of like how much footage it actually is. I am building a big reel. I have these like little, they're called thumb reels because they were basically rolled onto a person's thumb. So we have these shoe boxes. So this is from 1974, and it looks like this. And I've gone through each of these individual items and I've given them a unique number. Video file is then attached to that ID number, and I've been taking them from this and building them onto a reel like this. Look at it. So 50 of these little guys. Yeah, I'm just going through one by one. This is gonna be the reel that the film like lives on, and this is how we're gonna digitize it as like one big compilation reel. And I am basically just winding it on. This is like the last stage for each reel that I do. Each one is really small, and each one has like a bunch of little splices in it that need to be repaired. So this is a little, this is a little splicer, and you can, you know, it has little pins on there for you to put your perforations through. You can splice the film. This white film that I'm using is called leader, and it's just used to kind of like separate each reel that we're using, and it also like indicates the start and end of each segment, and then it also will kind of like protect if you have them individually. Like this yellow is like the protective leader on that.
For one of these large reels, how long does this take?
It usually takes about 5 days because these are thumb reels, and because a lot of them have, you can kind of almost see in here this piece of like the little strip of white is likely a masking tape splice. And so these 2 reels are from the same box. So one of those shoe boxes contained this much film, and this is 2,000 feet, right? Yeah, so this is 2,000 feet of film.
So this is actual footage.
This is actual footage.
The people who captured these moments could be long gone. This fragile footage locked away in a closet, attic, or basement. When found, the choice to preserve and digitize this footage, even if in 2D, no audio, black and white, and grainy, the moments captured have the ability to take us back in time. Okay, sorry, just jumping in here for a quick second. If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, really helps me out. If you're curious about anything else, or you think I should have covered something else, let me know in the comments. Just get down there in the comments. Share this video with a friend if you think they'd like it. But yeah, let's get back to the video.
Is most of this donated?
Yeah, so it's kind of a partnership. We like to think of it as a partnership. We call our participants contributors. So in exchange for providing the free digitization service, they allow us to keep a copy that we can use for educational purposes. So most people who bring us a collection, not everything will end up as a part of kind of our online collection, often because we don't have a lot of information about it. Even you think about it like your grandparents passed away and you've got their home movies and it says like Julie, 1960, and you don't recognize Julie, right? So like often there's a lot of things in here that don't have a lot of context, but what we're doing is trying to search through them and find things that we can contextualize.
But like when it comes to describing this like footage, like context is super important. Knowing, you know, where something was filmed, the family, the people in it, is important to figure out, like, you know, like what happened here and who are these people that we're looking at and things like that.
Each is hand carried to a nearby fountain, unceremoniously dumped into the cool bath.
So we go from film, used to capture memories through most of the 20th century, to VHS and tapes, which comes with its own set of issues.
In southern states like Texas, we see this a lot where like humidity enters the actual VHS tape itself and then it starts to have sticky shed syndrome. So you play it in one of the machines and then the tape literally falls apart. Like all of those black magnetic particles just bloop, like right off the tape into the machine. VHS tapes typically last maybe about 20-30 years, but especially being in the South, I mean, they're deteriorating like crazy. So film can last like 100 years is like the estimate on it, versus video is like, yeah, we have videotapes from the 70s that won't play anymore. Like there's a transfer success rate of about 70% for like the oldest types of videotapes, and those are only tapes from the 70s and 80s, which is kind of wild. Yeah. So we're kind of fighting against the elements of time and nature to do this work.
So VHS and anything that comes in a tape format lets people record home movies, weddings, TV shows, you name it. But unfortunately, this videotape wasn't made to last. The magnetic tape inside the VHS is fragile. Time, heat, and dust can degrade it.
If you have a videotape that you made in the 80s, you might still be able to get a transfer of it, but it's already lost some information. Every day you wait, you're losing more and more information from the tape. So we really, even if you decide, you're like, I don't want my home movies to maybe end up online or something like that, that's fine. Go to somebody else, but like do it now.
Let's look at the next step of the process where some of this old, borderline antique film gets a second chance.
Everything is done here on site, so nothing goes off site. This is our little lab right here, and we can record 6 videos at one time to ProRes. We have our whole area where we do our video formats, and then we have our laser graphics scanner over here. It's VHS decks, we have some high cameras here, but then we also have decks that are professional broadcast decks like Umatics that people probably don't recognize. As well as things like Betacam, which were newer broadcast videotape formats.
All these machines are connected in such a way, allowing the team to route signals from vintage decks to modern capture systems. This setup didn't come from a catalog. Most of it was pieced together over years of searching.
We have a patch bay, so all of this had to be found on eBay. Some of these patch bays are from the 1980s. XLR patch bays that I had to custom build and just buy all the parts and screw them all together. So we can do a variety of different tapes. We can do consumer, so VHS, all the way to pro, like Betacam or Digibeta. And our oldest piece of equipment is probably these Umatic decks, which are from the very early 70s. And so these are what, TV news stations used to use back in the day to record their programs onto. So that's why we have to have them open. Because these decks aren't manufactured anymore, we have to do all of this maintenance on our own.
And due to the nature and age of these machines and tapes, the Texas Archive of the Moving Image find themselves as late 20th century analog technicians, sometimes even performing an analog surgery.
It's really common in our field at this point that most people know some level of maintenance and some level of basic troubleshooting because there is no technical support. They're not making these machines anymore. there's not enough of these even for sale on eBay in working order to go around and last us in comparison to how much undigitized media there is out in the world. These are already way past their prime. I mean, these were not meant to last more than a couple of years in a broadcast setting. And we're kind of doing necromancy in a way by keeping these alive. Test tapes as well. You can kind of see what that tape path looks like there. And so, you know, this we do like a basic physical check that everything's running. And then, you know, when we have this hooked up or wired up to the patch bay, we can also see if like physically the image looks good. You know, things like digital 8 high, things that were more consumer. So we do scour eBay for more affordable options like a handheld digital 8 camera or a handheld high 8 camera. Because that's really the only way to do this work at this point is to get your equipment used. So yeah, so we're constantly scouring to upcycle things, especially pro equipment that is now obsolete, and try to repurpose that for our use. So it is definitely a scavenger hunt to get this kind of equipment.
Meet Rosebud, a professional grade film scanner. Used a lot in the film and movie industry. It can process and digitize film from 8mm, Super 8 to 16mm, the most common home video film formats.
So this is a laser graphics archivist. It can do 8mm, Super 8, 16, and it can do up to 4K, DPX, all these fancy formats that archives or media production units would use. So this is where all of the film scanning magic happens.
And when being processed, you get a live view of what's being digitized right on the screen. And some of this footage, and even audio, hasn't been seen or heard in generations.
And probably the most captivating thing is just seeing this through. And so it's really awesome because we've had people that have seen, you know, deceased family members in their home movies when they watched them back. For instance, our film technician, prior to working with us, had actually participated in our free digitization program and got to hear some of the first audio of like their deceased grandpa that they had never met on these home movies. Yeah. As you start looking at films from the later 70s and into the 80s, a lot of people were buying, it was more affordable to buy film that actually had audio recording capabilities on it. Yeah, so then you start to see that happen more and more. Yeah. We try to give people like the best scan possible. So we have had instances where people shoot like the wrong stock, like a daylight stock, indoors, and then their footage is super blue or super green. And so we actually do color correction to all of that footage so that people can get like the best version of their home movie in memory back, because we would hate to give something back to somebody and be like, sorry, your dad didn't know how to shoot film, so here's this home movie that's all blue. So we try to make sure that if people are donating their precious materials to us and allowing us to keep a copy for our archive, that we're giving them back the best possible scan too.
The Texas Archive and archives just like this one are bringing to light moments you probably never knew existed. And if you'd heard about these moments in history, you probably didn't know they existed on film. Here are just a few examples. Now, if we go to the Texas Archive and Moving Image website and we search up Pancho Villa, there is some really cool footage you can find. Ties into Texas, American, and Mexican history. Pancho Villa. I've seen photos of him, and he's famous in Texas and Mexican lore, but he was a prominent Mexican revolutionary general, a folk hero, and a former bandit who played a key role in the Mexican Revolution between 1910 and 1920. He's kind of remembered as a Robin Hood-style figure or a controversial warlord, depending on who's telling the story. Now, he is a controversial figure, but this is history. He was famous for his violence and brutality, especially during raids while fighting the dictator of Mexico, and he was known to execute his enemies. But did you know we actually have footage of Pancho Villa? This footage is absolutely fascinating. Back in 1913, producers in Hollywood actually reached out to Pancho Villa and asked if they could film his movements, and he ended up signing a contract with a movie studio or producer where 50% of the profits actually went to Pancho Villa's revolutionary efforts. Now, although some of this footage is staged, like the mock executions, this digitized footage gives us 4 minutes and 12 seconds of history. Okay, next. Let's go to the next one. Now, if I go to the search bar and I search 1900 storm. Now this one ties back to Thomas Edison.
The earliest footage that we know of Texas is from 1900, and that's the Thomas Edison Company films of the Galveston hurricane wreckage.
And we go to the 1900 hurricane. Now the 1900 storm struck Galveston Island on September 8, 1900, without any real warning. This storm was absolutely devastating. I mean, between 6,000 and 12,000 people were killed, and it actually shifted the entire economy and trajectory of Galveston and Texas. But just a few days after the storm, Thomas Edison sent a crew down to Galveston Island, and they actually snuck their film equipment over Galveston Bay to capture this footage. So what you're about to see are Galvestonians cleaning up one of the major roads on the island after the nation's deadliest natural disaster. Now, here's the thing, I actually live on Galveston Island and didn't even know this footage existed until a couple of years ago. But here it is, my hometown, after a historic storm, and we're still learning things. This footage makes the stories and everything everyone knows about the storm feel way more real, way more tangible. Like it really wasn't that long ago. Okay, the next thing I want to show you. If we go to the search bar, World War II footage. We look World War II, let's click this one right here, a 19-minute film reel. Now, this one is absolutely fascinating to me. Now, if you're anything like me, you like history, you like World War II history. Did you know they actually built cameras into the wings of planes? So you could either gather reconnaissance or verify you were shooting down an enemy plane? This one's titled the Lieutenant Colonel Jack Bradley Collection, number 4, 9th Air Force Combat Film. Now the date on this film says 1943 to 1945, so somewhere towards the end of World War II in the European theater. So if you've ever watched historical documentaries, a lot of times producers, editors, directors will use archival footage, and without it, you wouldn't really have the visual depth that you have now. A recreation just doesn't quite do it sometimes, and even if it's grainy, black and white, and flashing, we know it's real. I cannot emphasize enough how those clips I just showed you were just scratching the surface. Preserving this footage isn't just about going to take a look at these major historical events. It's about being able to look at everyday life.
If you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. That's all right.
I mean, everything that comes on film or tape. Celebrity interviews.
Story really well.
Any chances your star power will get you making a movie here in East Texas?
Maybe. Would never say never. Yeah, there's definitely some stories to be told. I know that. Yeah.
Old industrial training films. Unaired news clips.
Well, he's not using this. He's not using this shot, which is the most celebrated shot.
Home videos.
A friend of mine brought in Super 8 film with sound, and it was of her father, and her father had passed away when she was a little kid, and so this was her opportunity to hear him and see what he looked like, bringing those photos to life. I mean, there's a lot of meaningful things that can happen with this content, whether or not it ends up on our website or not.
Right.
So we really hope that people who are participating in this are watching it and sharing it with their families and friends too.
I love that. You got me on that one. I love that.
It was an emotional moment,
So a lot of the time people have home movie footage that they feel is pretty, innocuous, or they think it's insignificant. You may not think it's significant, but we never know if 30 years down the line, 40 years down the line, researchers and historians and archivists are looking for is what did day-to-day life look like? All of this kind of stuff plays into building our future and how we understand the future as well.
We want people to watch it. We want to know at the end of the day that somebody out there cares about it, right?
A big thank you to my friend David, who let me hold on to his film and let me use it for the purposes of kind of showing off in this video. I'm pleased to report that this footage will be mailed to the Texas Archive of Moving Image when I am finished with this video, so it can be preserved for future generations. And a huge thank you to Elizabeth at the Texas Archive of Moving Image for allowing me to come in and film and kind of take up everybody's day for about 3 hours. I really appreciate everyone at the Texas Archive of Moving Image. I'm a huge fan of your mission. So, needless to say, if you have footage laying around, or if you have some in your attic or in a closet or anything like that, you might want to think about getting it preserved before it's lost forever. If you want to hear my interview with Elizabeth, we discuss a little bit of history, a little bit of archival stuff, kind of a little more of the inner workings and behind the scenes, click the link in the description for the full interview. If you like the video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and please leave a comment down below. It really helps out. All right, I think that's it. So this was a gift I received a few months ago. It was found in an attic. Definitely not the best place to keep something like this in a humid and hot climate. Let's open it up. Now, this is how I received it. I haven't touched anything inside here. I just wanted to show you kind of what this old projector looked like. Have some little 8mm strips there. We have the power cord, which seems to be falling apart slightly. I've got a light bulb and more of this little film. It's kind of falling apart. Okay, so we have these little film reels here. So to be honest, I don't even know how this is supposed to work. It doesn't seem to slide out or anything. Oh, that comes right off. Put your film right on that. I would love to plug this in, but I'm not going to do that before I can verify it's not going to catch on fire or